Hey guys, FLW Tour Angler Kyle Cordiana here. This is going to be my recap for the first FLW Tour event of 2019 held on Lake Sam Rayburn out of Jasper, Texas. This was a really good event for me. Practice didn't go great. Outcome for me turned out great. I had one of the best days of fishing I've ever had on the water. It comes on a tour event on day 2 when I need to make a move to make the weekend. I just want to go over some of the stuff that worked for me. You really need to check out my day 2. It was a really awesome thing. I'll put the link below for day 2 if you haven't seen it. But I don't think so, but it's coming right at me. Freaking screaming. Oh, go! Are you kidding me? I didn't think it was big. You want a different angle. There's my kicker. So full. That's a 6. I'm going to show you what worked for me. Some of the stuff that worked for me well in practice didn't turn out to work for me in the tournament. And that's often the case when you're practicing for an event. Don't get so narrow-minded that your practice is going to equal your tournament, because we all know that ain't the case. How many times do you go out there and jack them in practice and you can't catch them in the tournament? How many times does that switcheroo on you where you didn't catch them very good in practice, but you catch them good in the tournament? Same thing with baits. If you catch them good on this bait in practice, if that's not working in the tournament, don't be afraid to get away from that. And that was a perfect example of what happened here. And I got to tip my hat to my traveling partner in this one, Derek Foltz. He had a bait that worked for him in practice, wasn't working for me. But on day 1 of the event, I had that bait tied on. I had 13 rods on the deck. That just tells you how dialed in I was. I had 13 different rods on the deck. And when I went to my school of fish I'd found in practice and they weren't biting very well on the baits that I had been catching them on, I picked up that bait and they ate it. And they ate the crap out of it. And they ate it better than anything else I could throw at them. And I gave them the tackle box. You won't see it in the video, but I threw everything at them under the sun. And for whatever reason, that little bait was the ticket. So tip my hat to Derek Foltz on telling me another bait that he was catching them on so that I could add the 13th rod to my deck, which turned out to be about the only rod I needed on my deck. So day number 1, let me stop. Let me go back to practice. So if you haven't watched my practice videos, real quick summary of the practice. Majority of my fish were coming on a Carolina rig and a Texas rig plastic. I really thought most of my fish in this event were going to come on a Carolina rig. And just dragging it through hydrilla. It was really hard to find schools of bass on Lake Sam Rayburn, but when you found them, dude, they were in masses. There was a lot of fish. If you got one bite, you could about guarantee if you threw back in there, you were going to get another bite. As you put that together in practice, you began to realize, okay, when I get a bite, you know, I might catch one more just to check size, or just because it's so hard to get a bite, I want to have fun, I might catch a few. But there was a school of fish there to be had. I only found 2.5 schools of fish. I picked the right school to start on day 1. Only shared it with one other angler. I tried to go to those other schools in the tournament, and they were getting pounded pretty good. And my other good school that you see me catch on day 1 of practice had some good fish on a Carolina rig and a Texas rig plastic. That was getting hit by another angler that made the top 30 as well. He was there on day 3. I tried to go check those fish. He was still fishing there. So that produced a good area too. So I found 2 good schools of fish. But I want to show you the Carolina rigs because that's not what played out in the tournament, but it worked really good. And I got a little trick here to show you. So this is just your standard Carolina rig. I got a leader on here that's probably, I don't even know what size weight I'm throwing on this thing, but I'll show it to you. It's got to be, I don't know, ½ ounce probably weight or something like that. And I've just got that barrel weight. I like to put some brass on there with little beads on a swivel. You always need to check where your line ties to your swivel here. It's already rough right now. Sometimes when you rear back and cast, you throw these real hard. The inside of this barrel swivel and some of this brass and stuff, it'll start to cause a weak spot right above your swivel. So you got to retie that quite a bit. Again, I've got a leader on here that's probably, oh, it's probably 30 inches long, 24 to 30 inches long. I'm throwing a wide gap on here. Just a little soft jerk bait's what I'm throwing. Watermelon color with a chartreuse tail on the tip. I'm throwing it on 17-pound fluorocarbon, and the leader's the same, 17 and 17. I didn't have any reason to go fancy with that. This produced a lot of good bites for me in practice. Didn't catch much on it in the tournament. I was throwing a Kistler KLX 7'3", and this is always a mouthful, but this is one of their best rods. It's a medium heavy, but it's a Texas Carolina rig worm jig rod. I have this in a 7-foot and a 7'3". I love these so much. They're so diverse. Great rod. Again, Ardent Apex Elite, 7-to-1 gear ratio on that. This is just your standard Carolina rig. You would just throw it out there and try to get around the grass. If you could be on the grass edge, great. If you got in the middle of it, that's okay too. The fish were kind of bouncing back between one and the other. I'll tell you where I really think they were in the tournament, but in practice I couldn't figure out whether they were on the edge, the middle, or whatnot. But a little Carolina rig trick that some of you may know about, but some of you may not. It's kind of like called a split shot rig, I think. Back in the day, the old crappie sinkers with the little lead weight that looked like a little Pac-Man, you could just put on the line and bite down your teeth and pinch it. That's a split shot. Well, you can do that, and it's like basically a really light Finesse Carolina rig. But you have to pinch that on your line, and I don't really like pinching it on my line because it makes a bad spot in your line. So another way around that is to get a lightweight tungsten by Shaker Tungsten and Tackle, and you can put a swivel on there, or you don't have to put a swivel if you don't want to, but it helps eliminate twists, but you can peg them. Shaker Tungsten Tackle has these really good clear peg weights. They got different colors as well, but you can peg it on the top, and you can peg it on the bottom if you want. I did a swivel here. And basically, it's a smaller leader. This one's only about 16 inches long. This is a small leader, a little bit lighter line. I'm throwing 15 and 15. I've got a smaller Finesse soft jerk bait here, smaller hook, smaller bait. It's just a way to finesse a Carolina rig. It's not going to ball up in the grass near as much as that big heavy weight. It's just a way to finesse. You're going to get more bites with this when the fishing's tough. It may not be the best way to get a big bite, but it is a really good tactic to try in vegetation. This is not something you want to go drag on rocks. That's not really what it's for. It's just a way to fish grass, and they call it a split shot rig, but this is another way where you can use a tungsten and a swivel or two pegs, if your pegs will hold the weight there. That's another trick to get some bites when the fishing's tough. But let's get to what dominated them, right? So I have no affiliation with this, but this is a Senko. But it's a special Senko. It's a Senko with a boot tail on it, right? So it's a swim Senko. I had two different baits rigged up with this, and I had one with a 5/16 ounce weight pegged. Again, a Shaker Tungsten Tackle weight. I had it pegged, and what the peg weight does is it forces that weight to stay attached to the head of the bait. So if you're fishing in grass, when you have that weight pegged and you're coming up through hydrilla and you want the bait to fall down in the hydrilla, if the weight's not pegged, then the weight might catch up on the hydrilla and not sink, or it might sink on one side and the bait stays up on top. And there's times when the fish are honed in on the top of the grass, and that might be what you want, but when they get buried up, when the sun comes out or the cold front comes in, there's a high pressure system, they might be buried up, and if you peg that weight, it'll force that bait down into the grass deeper. And this was very important for me on day 2. I caught my 2 biggest fish later in the day when it seemed like the fish had retreated back into the hydrilla.
There's a bite. Good God. That's a big one. Come on, baby. Boom. Oh, yeah. I gotta send out, that's the one. That's the one. Let me get a picture of that too. Pass the love out. Good job. Drones will come get you too. Give me some of that one.
And I pegged my weight, and I got down in there deeper, and I got bigger bites. And you can see this thing is all chewed up. I was biting it down on day 3. They got to where they were eating it funny because I'd probably caught them the day before. I had this thing bit all the way down to where there wasn't nothing much but a tail because they were just short striking me. But again, you just Texas rig this. I had a 3/0 owner hook, straight shank hook. Another idea that Derek gave me as opposed to a wide gap, and it worked really good. I didn't lose many fish, and you're just barely rigging that to where the hook's just barely coming out of the back of the bait. I was throwing this peg weight one on a Kistler Z-Bone. This is a 7.3 light medium heavy. I had 15-pound fluorocarbon. Ardent Apex Elite 7-to-1 gear ratio again. And literally I was just making a really long cast. And what I figured out late in the game, basically on tournament day or the second day of the tournament, there was a clean edge on the inside of the hydrilla line. So this lake was, almost up 10 feet. And the old hydrilla was kind of topped out at about 10 to 12 feet. You know, basically where the old bank line was, a couple foot below that, that's where the hydrilla was. So now we had 10 to 12 foot of water on top of the hydrilla. The best hydrilla was probably 6 to 10 foot tall off the bottom, so 20 foot of water now, anywhere from 12 to 20 foot of water had the really good hydrilla. And in between that hydrilla that was there and how all the flooded water was, there was this bare spot. And some of these bare spots had hay grass, bushes, but some of them had a nice clean swath that ran on the backside. If you've ever seen Sam Rayburn, when it's level, there's cool areas where fish always take advantage of to spawn that's behind the normal vegetation line, and even behind the hay grass sometimes there's this clean spot. If you were able to find one of those clean spots that had a school of fish in it, it was lights out for you. It literally was almost every cast. And on day 2, I had a wind that came out of a direction that set the fish up along where I knew the hydrilla was on the edge. And if you watch when I make those casts on day 2, I'm not dragging through much grass at all. I am in that clean area. I'm along that inside edge for the majority of those bites, 29 in a row. I had one piece of grass that I was hitting every cast. And you might hear me say it, there's that magic piece of grass. It had to be just a little piece of hydrilla that chunked out, a little chunk of it that came out. But I was basically dragging through all clean water along the edge. I'd hit that little chunk, break it free, and I'd be back in the clean area again. Boom, there'd be one there if they didn't already hit it before that. Just an incredible day. But the inside edge of that hydrilla line is where all those fish were holding if you found the right school. And I mean, I know I saw Nick LeBrun get on the edge. I know Terry Bolton, who won the event, first and second. I know those guys were honed in on the inside edge of that hydrilla line. So if you get out to Rayburn, try to find those fish on that inside hydrilla line. They'll probably still be there for a while. I know more ramps are closed, Humphrey's closed, all that's closed now. So it's probably hard to get on the water, but if you do, I guarantee them fish are still biting, and it's really fun out there. So that was that. Now, the other thing that was important, and I made this adjustment on day 3 when it got really tough, is same hook, same bait, same 5/16 shaker tungsten, no peg, right? No peg at all. If those fish are not real aggressive and short striking and you're not getting a lot of bites that are taking the bait, you're swinging, you're missing, try to unpeg your weight. What that does is it allows that fish to grab that bait and swim off with it. And it doesn't feel that weight. That weight's free of it. That fish can do whatever it wants and it doesn't feel that resistance. In that area where I had that massive school of fish found, I caught a lot of fish in there on day 2, and on day 3 I was really struggling to get the fish to commit to taking the bait all the way in and even getting the hook in their mouth, and I was getting really frustrated. By taking that peg off, it was one less thing that tipped that bass off that this may be an artificial bait, essentially. And I got some extra bites doing that. This will also help you keep your bait on top of the hydrilla, like I mentioned before. If the fish seem to be a little bit higher in the water column. I watched a video where Terry Bolton made a switch from one crankbait to another, and the other was a shallower running crankbait. And he had this gut feeling that maybe he was diving too deep with the first one. The next 3 casts, that shallower crankbait, he caught him. Same thing can apply on your plastic baits. If you think you're going under the fish or over the fish, you either got to get deeper or try to stay shallower. By not pegging your tungsten, you might keep your bait higher up on the grass and hit those fish that maybe are a little bit shallower in the water column. So just another trick. Again, Z-Bone, medium heavy. This is a 7-foot medium heavy, 15-pound fluorocarbon, Ardent Apex Elite, 3/0 owner, 7-to-1 gear ratio. Just blasted them. What a tournament. 23 pounds, 3 ounces. I'll put a few clips like in and out in between this just to like give you a taste if you haven't seen it. I do want to show you guys this thunderbait. I had a bunch of these made by Bionic Fishing because before the water came up, my plan was to slow reel this big thunderbait, aka a chatterbait, a blade bait. They got some awesome colors. This is the same color that I caught them on the big swim jig a few years ago when I caught 23 pounds. I did catch a little one on this in the tournament, but because of the water coming up so high, it was really hard to get this guy to play ball with where the fish were related. But that's a really good new chatterbait to try by Bionic Fishing. It's awesome. It just wasn't what the fish wanted on this go around. Again, I mentioned Shaker, Tungsten, and Tackle. One of my new guys this year, one of my new sponsors, and they just have some awesome tungsten products, and they got peg weights, and they got some other things. So go to Shaker, Tungsten, and Tackle at shakertnt.com. Go give them a look. Support these guys that support us. It really helps make the world go round in the sport of fishing. I also want to give a shout out to somebody who sent this to my house. I'm not sure who sent me this, but this is an awesome book. I have a suspicion that it's a guy I know, a good friend of mine named Nick, but there was no return sender. There was a nice little card that said a gift for you in it, and I'll read it to you. It just says, "Merry Christmas, bro. God laid it on my heart to send you this. I'll be reading the same one this year. Enjoy this gift. Read it daily. Work before takeoff on tournament. Whatever. 2019 is your year." So I think I might know that this is a guy named Nick, a good friend of mine, but I'm not certain. So if it was someone else, let me know who you are. Thank you so much for this. And what this is a book called Catch of the Day by Jimmy Houston. And it's 365 days. It's a devotional. It's a Bible verse for each day. And it just goes in and it provides one verse for that day. And then it tries to translate that verse into something that we can relate to the sport of fishing, to the outdoors. You know, I tell everybody, that gets close to me, I don't make it to church a whole lot because of my hobbies and obsessions, but the outdoors is my chapel. The outdoors is where I am always closest to God. If you can go sit in the outdoors and fish and watch the otters and alligators and bald eagles and wildlife and vegetation, or deer hunt and watch deer wash by and other mammals and raccoons and squirrels, if you can sit there and watch all that and deny the fact that God exists, then there's something wrong with you. And so for me, when I'm in the outdoors, that's where I am closest to God. That is where my chapel is. And Jimmy Houston, I've read several of these already. It was funny, the day that I got home, I opened this up and I flipped back to the day 3 of the tournament. And it talks about a boat breaking down. And if you watch on day 3 of the tournament, Derek Phelps broke down. I picked him up. I sent him a picture of this. I said, how cool is this? You know, it's God telling us, hey, this is how we got to handle it. There's times we break down, and this is how we handle it. And I just thought it was very, it was relevant. And thank you for this, whoever sent this. And I just think this is awesome. Guys, thank you so much for watching my videos. I hope all this recap stuff is worth your time. I do it for you and only you. Any comments you got, put them below. Any questions you got, I try to always respond. No matter how long it takes me to get to them, I try to get to them all. Please click subscribe, and there's a little bell that sits just to the right of the subscribe button. Make sure you click that and turn notifications on so that you know when I post a video, if you want to know. Otherwise, you may not know. It's just a new thing that YouTube did. Before default, it was turned on, but now it's not. So when you click subscribe, or if you're already subscribed, make sure to go to my YouTube page and click on notifications, and make sure you turn on notifications so that you get notified, so you can see these videos that I work so hard for you guys. I think that's everything. Thank you so much. Until the next time, we got Lake Toho coming up in a couple weeks. Never been there. The Kissimmee chain. I've been watching videos, doing my homework, and I think Major League Fishing is going to be there right before us. So hats off to those guys. Hope they do well. And the thing is, that's going to be live on TV, and everybody's going to watch it. So it's going to put a weird twist on our event, which is following right behind it. Those fish are going to get caught and released and not relocated, so fish on beds might still be there. So that's going to be very interesting. But anyway, I'll quit rattling on. Thanks, guys, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Over and out.